I am proud to create him Prince of Wales, Tywysog Cymru, the country whose title I've been so greatly privileged to bear.
Something explosive has just unfolded behind the closed doors of Buckingham Palace, and the speed of it has left even seasoned insiders stunned out of their usual confidence. Not the press, not Parliament, and not even the most experienced royal watchers saw this coming at such a fast and heavy pace. King Charles III, currently dealing with an ongoing cancer battle that has already shaken the structure of the monarchy, has now signed a highly unusual and powerful decree. This order officially names Catherine, Princess of Wales, as the sole guardian of the crown jewels, a title that carries far more weight than anything symbolic or ceremonial alone. Not shared responsibility, not temporary oversight, but full and exclusive guardianship. The crown jewels themselves are not just decorations sitting behind glass. They represent centuries of monarchy, authority, and national identity. And now, they sit under Catherine's official guardianship. We're talking about 23,578 gemstones, including the legendary imperial state crown containing 2,868 diamonds, plus historic treasures like the Cullinan diamonds, the St. Edward's crown, and royal regalia dating all the way back to 1661. These aren't ordinary artifacts. They are the heartbeat of royal tradition, and the fact that this responsibility now rests entirely on Catherine has raised eyebrows across every corner of royal analysis, and the timing behind this decision. That's where things start to get even more intense and layered with meaning. Stay closely tuned, because what's unfolding here could completely shift how people view the entire royal structure moving forward. The situation surrounding King Charles III's health forms the foundation of everything happening right now inside the palace walls, and it cannot be brushed aside or softened. This is not casual aging or minor concern. This is a confirmed cancer diagnosis that was first discovered in early 2024 during what was expected to be a routine medical procedure for an enlarged prostate. But during that procedure, doctors identified something far more serious and unexpected that changed everything instantly. Buckingham Palace, staying consistent with its tradition of limited medical disclosure, never revealed the exact type of cancer involved. However, they clearly stated it was not prostate cancer, meaning the discovery pointed to something separate and more complex. That revelation alone forced the king to scale back his public duties almost immediately, sending quiet waves of concern through both political and royal circles. For months, silence and speculation filled the gaps until December 2025, when King Charles appeared in a televised message during Channel 4's Stand Up to Cancer broadcast. His words were carefully chosen but deeply revealing when he stated, "Thanks to early diagnosis, effective intervention, and adherence to doctors' orders, my own schedule of cancer treatment can be reduced in the new year." That moment briefly reassured the public, but only partially, because one word changed everything. Reduced, not ended, not completed, and certainly not cured. The treatment continues, just at a different level, and palace insiders have reportedly described his condition as precarious, a word that carries heavy weight when used behind closed doors. So the question naturally rises: if a monarch is dealing with ongoing uncertainty, what steps are taken to protect the institution itself? The answer appears to be unfolding in real time through carefully structured power adjustments that are now impossible to ignore. This crown jewels decision didn't happen in isolation. It fits into a wider pattern of strategic transitions inside the monarchy that have been quietly building momentum. Earlier in June 2025, King Charles made another major move that many outside royal reporting circles underestimated at the time. He formally invited Prince William and Princess Catherine to take on the role of granting royal warrants starting in spring 2026. This might sound administrative on the surface, but in reality, it is one of the most powerful traditional privileges within the monarchy. A royal warrant is not just a title or decorative honor, it is the monarchy's official seal of approval, historically controlled exclusively by the reigning sovereign. Since Charles ascended the throne in 2022, this responsibility remained solely in his hands alongside Queen Camilla, with no delegation whatsoever until now. That shift alone signals a controlled transfer of influence within the royal framework. By extending this authority to William and Catherine, Charles broke from long-standing tradition in a way that has not been seen in modern royal memory. Catherine, in particular, entered history again by becoming the first Princess of Wales in over a century to hold the power to grant royal warrants. The last figure to do anything similar was Queen Mary before 1910, which places this moment in a historical gap of 116 years. Even Princess Diana, whose legacy remains one of the most influential in modern royal history, never held this specific authority during her time as Princess of Wales. That comparison alone shows just how unusual and significant this current shift really is. And just when observers thought the pattern had reached its peak, another layer of symbolism began to emerge through public appearances and royal engagements. Royal symbolism is never random, and every detail is carefully selected, observed, and interpreted within the monarchy. Every tiara, every jewel, every placement carries meaning that often extends far beyond the surface. So when Catherine appeared at the German state banquet at Windsor Castle on December 3, 2025, wearing the Indian circlet tiara after it had not been seen publicly for 2 decades, it immediately caught attention across royal circles. This was not just any piece, it was historically associated with Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, and later worn by Queen Elizabeth II only once in 2005, before being placed back into royal vaults for years. The sudden reappearance on Catherine's head was not treated as coincidence by experts who study royal symbolism professionally. Insiders reportedly interpreted the moment as a carefully communicated message about continuity and stability within the monarchy, regardless of uncertainty surrounding the king's health. One royal source was quoted saying, "The message they are sending out is that the monarchy is healthy, regardless of what happens with the king." That statement alone adds an entirely new layer of interpretation to the event. And this isn't an isolated incident either. Over the past several years, Catherine has increasingly been seen wearing historically significant royal pieces that were once reserved strictly for queens or senior monarchs. From necklaces tied to royal inheritance to brooches with centuries of historical meaning, her appearances have become a quiet display of continuity and preparation. Royal jewelry analysts have even noted that Catherine has developed a reputation for bringing renewed life to the crown jewels, blending historical legacy with modern presentation in a way that keeps tradition visible and relevant. This isn't about fashion or personal style. It is about institutional messaging delivered through centuries-old symbols. The crown jewels themselves, now under her guardianship, represent one of the most important collections of royal authority in the world. Housed in the Tower of London's Jewel House, a fortress with nearly 1,000 years of history, this collection includes over 23,578 gemstones, making its value not just high, but effectively immeasurable. Among these treasures sits the imperial state crown, used after coronations during formal processions, containing thousands of diamonds, hundreds of pearls, and multiple historic gemstones with deep royal lineage. It includes the Cullinan II diamond, the Black Prince's ruby, and the Stuart sapphire, each one carrying centuries of political and cultural history. The St. Edward's crown, created in 1661, remains one of the most sacred objects in royal tradition and is only used at the exact moment of coronation. King Charles III himself wore it during his coronation at Westminster Abbey on May 6, 2023, marking a historic return of a full coronation ceremony after 70 years. Other symbols, like the sovereign's orb and scepter, represent spiritual authority and governance, with the scepter containing the Cullinan I diamond, the largest cut colorless diamond in the world at 530 carats. Even the controversial Koh-i-Noor diamond, with its deeply complex colonial history, remains part of this collection, adding further global attention to its legacy. And now, in January 2026, additional items from this extraordinary collection have been placed on display at the Tower of London for the first time under the Crown Jewels exhibition managed by Historic Royal Palaces, expanding public engagement with these historic treasures. Everything happening here forms a larger pattern that is difficult to ignore, where symbolism, health uncertainty, and structured delegation appear to be moving in parallel at the highest levels of the monarchy. Something far more intense than simple royal procedure is now unfolding in the background of Buckingham Palace, and it is starting to reshape how people interpret every single move being made at the top of the monarchy. This is no longer just about ceremony or tradition. It is about power, timing, and preparation for what could be a major structural shift inside the British Crown itself. The idea that Catherine has been named sole guardian of the Crown Jewels is not just unusual, it is being viewed as a signal that something deeper is being prepared behind closed doors. And that is exactly why conversations around the palace are starting to drift into uncomfortable territory for many observers. The so-called abdication whispers are no longer being treated as random online speculation by everyone in royal commentary circles. Instead, they are being discussed alongside visible changes in royal duties, even if nothing has been officially confirmed at the institutional level. What is confirmed is still serious enough on its own. King Charles III continues to deal with an ongoing cancer condition, and his treatment is still active rather than completed or resolved. At the same time, palace aides have openly acknowledged that both William and Catherine are being moved into roles much earlier than what traditional royal succession patterns would normally suggest. That alone has already raised questions about timing and long-term planning inside the monarchy. But what is being whispered in media commentary and unnamed insider reports goes even further into speculation territory. By March 2026, some unnamed sources cited by Jubilee Cast suggested that discussions inside the palace are no longer just about what-if scenarios, but about when decisions might be implemented. One insider claim even suggested that King Charles could potentially step back in a matter of weeks, with ceremonial milestones like trooping the colour being described by some as possibly symbolic final appearances. However, none of these claims have been confirmed, and Buckingham Palace has issued no formal statement supporting any abdication timeline whatsoever. That difference between confirmed fact and unverified claim is extremely important here, because it separates institutional reality from narrative speculation. Still, what cannot be ignored is that real changes in responsibility are happening in plain sight. Prince William has increasingly taken on duties that would traditionally sit directly under the monarch's authority. He has conducted investiture ceremonies, participated in high-level state engagements, and represented the Crown in official capacities that historically would have been reserved for the reigning sovereign alone. These actions are not symbolic filler. They are functional extensions of royal authority. And now, when you combine that with Catherine being named sole guardian of the Crown Jewels, the picture becomes even more loaded with meaning. These are not isolated developments. They are being interpreted as part of a coordinated pattern of transition, whether formally acknowledged or not. One royal insider described this shift as a very significant step, stating that William and Catherine are effectively being fast-tracked into full monarchical responsibility earlier than expected. That phrase alone has fueled even more discussion about whether the monarchy is quietly preparing for a smoother transition of power than publicly discussed. At this point, the question being asked in royal analysis circles is unavoidable. Is this preparation for a future King William and Queen Catherine becoming operational sooner than traditional timelines would suggest? Even without official confirmation, the sequence of events has made that question impossible to ignore. And when you step back and look at the crown jewels themselves, the weight of the situation becomes even more symbolic. These objects have existed in their current restored form since 1661, surviving wars, political upheaval, and centuries of constitutional change without interruption. They are not just historical artifacts, they are living symbols of continuity for the entire monarchy. Now that responsibility has been placed into Catherine's hands in a formalized way. It naturally triggers deeper interpretation about what role she is being prepared for in the long term. That interpretation is what is fueling much of the current discussion. Even if official statements remain limited and carefully worded, there is also a noticeable shift in how Catherine is being perceived publicly in relation to the crown itself. 10 years ago, she was widely seen as a private individual entering royal life from outside the institution. Today, she's being positioned at the center of some of its most symbolically important responsibilities. And that transformation is not happening in isolation. It is happening alongside visible changes in how duties are distributed within the royal household. William increasingly takes on state-level responsibilities. Catherine assumes more ceremonial and symbolic authority, and King Charles remains in a position where health considerations are clearly part of the broader institutional planning. Even though none of this officially confirms abdication plans, the accumulation of these shifts is what makes the situation feel unusually accelerated compared to previous royal transitions. That is why commentators continue to connect these developments, even while acknowledging that official confirmation does not exist. Because when you look at the structure of the crown jewels themselves, the meaning becomes even heavier. These objects represent continuity stretching back centuries, surviving even attempts to dismantle monarchy during the English Civil War, when regalia was destroyed and later rebuilt after the restoration of the monarchy in 1661. That historical survival adds even more symbolic weight to who is entrusted with them today. And now, with Catherine positioned at the center of that legacy, the interpretation being made by observers is that this is not just about protection. It is about preparation for continuity at the highest level of monarchy. When you step back and examine the full weight of what the crown jewels represent, it becomes clear that this is not just about history or tradition. It is about the survival of an institution that has continuously reshaped itself through centuries of disruption, crisis, and reinvention without ever losing its symbolic core. The crown jewels have only been stolen once in recorded history, back in 1671, when Thomas Blood managed to get dangerously close to pulling off one of the most audacious thefts in royal history by smuggling the St. Edward's crown out of the Tower of London under a cloak before being captured in a dramatic twist that still echoes through historical accounts today. Even more surprising is the fact that King Charles II chose to pardon him, turning what could have been a defining moment of punishment into one of the most unusual royal decisions ever recorded. From that point onward, the monarchy doubled down on protection, symbolism, and control, transforming the crown jewels into one of the most secure and carefully managed collections in the world. Over time, the jewel house itself evolved into a heavily fortified, globally recognized exhibition space, with its most recent major modernization completed around the coronation of Charles III in 2023, designed to balance public access with extreme levels of security and preservation. Yet despite all technological advancements and historical renovations, one principle remained untouched for centuries. The symbolic guardianship of the crown jewels always passed directly from one reigning sovereign to the next without deviation. That uninterrupted tradition survived wars, political revolutions, imperial collapse, constitutional reform, and even the long evolution from absolute monarchy into modern constitutional monarchy. Through abdications, assassinations, succession crises, and moments where the monarchy itself was questioned at the highest levels of society, the crown jewels remained anchored to the reigning monarch as an unbroken symbol of authority and continuity. But now, that long-standing structure has shifted in a way that is forcing observers to rethink how the monarchy is preparing for its future. Because King Charles has now placed Catherine at the center of that symbolic chain of custody, and that decision is being interpreted across multiple layers of meaning: 'constitutional, cultural, and deeply strategic. And this is where one of the most complex and quietly debated elements of the entire situation emerges: the Camilla question. Camilla, queen consort and now queen, occupies the highest formal position alongside the king during his reign. In any traditional reading of royal hierarchy, it would be expected that if symbolic guardianship of something as historically significant as the crown jewels were to be assigned within the royal household, the sitting queen would be the most obvious and institutionally consistent choice. That expectation is rooted in precedent, protocol, and the visible structure of monarchy as it operates in the present moment. But instead, the responsibility has been placed on Catherine, and that difference is what has fueled much of the deeper interpretation surrounding this decision. Royal watchers have consistently noted that while Camilla has successfully established her role and gained public acceptance over time, her position is fundamentally tied to the reign of King Charles rather than the long-term continuity of the monarchy itself. In contrast, Catherine represents the next constitutional phase of the crown through Prince William, meaning her role is directly aligned with future sovereignty rather than current reign alone. This is where the interpretation shifts from ceremonial symbolism into structural forecasting. Because when Charles assigns guardianship of the crown jewels to Catherine instead of Camilla, analysts are increasingly viewing it as a forward-facing institutional decision rather than a present-day honor. It suggests preparation, continuity planning, and controlled transition architecture being put in place while the current monarch is still able to personally oversee and formalize it. And that brings the conversation into another critical dimension: the silence of Buckingham Palace. Because in royal communication strategy, silence is never neutral, and it is rarely accidental. Buckingham Palace has not issued a detailed public explanation for the timing or reasoning behind this order. There has been no structured press briefing, no formal narrative framing, and no attempt to directly connect this decision to health, succession, or long-term institutional planning. That absence is particularly notable when compared to how previous royal developments have been communicated. When Catherine's earlier role expansions, such as her involvement in royal warrant authority, were announced, they were accompanied by structured messaging, curated explanations, and carefully managed commentary from palace sources designed to frame the development as historic, positive, and celebratory. This time, the communication approach is noticeably quieter, more restrained, and more immediate in execution, and that difference is exactly what drives speculation in the absence of official explanation. Inside commentary circles, some insiders have described King Charles as increasingly focused on legacy stabilization and institutional continuity, particularly in light of his ongoing health condition. Reports suggest that decisions which would typically take extensive periods of consultation, advisory review, and phased implementation have instead been accelerated into more direct and immediate formalization. One particularly striking account described a private royal engagement where Charles appeared visibly fatigued at moments, while William and Catherine stepped in seamlessly to maintain the flow of proceedings without disruption or hesitation. Whether symbolic or coincidental, that image has been repeatedly referenced in discussions about whether the monarchy is already experiencing a quiet operational transition beneath the surface of official continuity. And this is where Catherine's role expands beyond symbolism into something far more modern and influential. The Kate effect is often discussed as a fashion phenomenon, but its scale is far broader than clothing or public appearance. It represents a measurable cultural and economic force that influences retail behavior, tourism interest, and global media attention toward the British monarchy. When Catherine wears a specific item, it frequently sells out almost instantly across global markets. When she appears in historic royal jewelry, global attention shifts toward the crown jewels, reigniting interest in both heritage and monarchy tourism. This is not accidental. It is a consistent pattern that has been observed for more than a decade. So when Catherine is positioned as guardian of the crown jewels, the decision carries both symbolic and modern strategic weight. It connects centuries-old royal artifacts to 21st-century global media ecosystems driven by speed, visibility, and cultural engagement. And that is why this move is being analyzed not only as a constitutional adjustment, but also as a modernization strategy for maintaining relevance in a rapidly changing world. Looking forward, the situation remains officially unchanged, but increasingly active in interpretation and analysis. There is no confirmed abdication announcement, no constitutional amendment, and no formal transition timeline. But there is a clear pattern of increasing delegation, accelerated role expansion, and structured preparation that continues to attract attention from observers of the monarchy. William is increasingly active in sovereign-level duties, Catherine is assuming central symbolic authority, and King Charles remains the reigning monarch while managing health realities that inevitably influence institutional planning. And that combination creates a situation that feels historically familiar in structure, but unusually accelerated in pace. Because even without official confirmation, the distribution of responsibility begins to resemble early-stage succession alignment. At the center of that evolving structure now stands Catherine, guardian of the crown jewels, holder of royal warrant authority, wearer of historic royal regalia, and an increasingly central figure in the monarchy's modern identity and public continuity. And that is why royal commentary keeps returning to the same core question, even in the absence of any formal answer. Is this already the beginning of the next reign taking shape quietly in real time? Because when all these developments are viewed together, they stop appearing as isolated administrative decisions and start forming a broader pattern of institutional preparation. And that is what makes this moment feel so significant to those watching closely. It is not one event, but a sequence of shifts occurring across multiple layers of the monarchy at once. Something is being positioned, something is being prepared, and something inside the royal structure is gradually moving toward its next chapter in a way that feels deliberate, controlled, and increasingly irreversible. And as this narrative continues to unfold, one final reflection remains at the center of it all. History rarely announces itself in loud or dramatic ways. It moves quietly, through decisions made behind closed doors, through symbols reassigned, through responsibilities gradually shifted until the change becomes undeniable in hindsight rather than in the moment. So when people look back years from now, this moment, the signing, the guardianship, the redistribution of symbolic authority, may be viewed differently than it is today. It may be seen not as the conclusion of a story already understood, but as the quiet beginning of a transition that was only recognized fully after it had already begun. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want to follow what's really unfolding inside the British monarchy and what could come next in this developing royal story.